Hey guys, it's Dhaubbs, and today I thought I'd make a video showing how to play Mistweaver for Argus. Before I go into the video, let's talk about talents. So for this attempt, I used Chi Burst, Mistwrap, Chi-Ji, and Manatee. You can swap out Mistwrap and Chi-Ji for Spirit of the Crane and Refreshing Jadewind, but those two choices require much more intense positioning, and I don't think it's advisable to do that on prog. You can still hit the range stack if you have Rage with Refreshing Jadewind, but it requires them to be very tightly stacked and requires you to be basically on the edge of that stack. There's like a 2-yard variance between, or difference between Refreshing Jadewind's range and Rage's range. So just keep that in mind. I wouldn't recommend it for prog, but those are things you can do. Spirit of the Crane has questionable value, just because you get so many mana resets in this fight. But if you find that you're able to get good value of it in Phase 3 and Phase 3 only, then it's a fine talent to use. It'll depend on how often you're getting targeted by Rage and your group. So with that, I guess let's just jump right into the video. So I'm not going to go over mechanics just because I'm going to assume that you've done that for yourself. One thing to note though is Mistweaver is treated exactly like melee on this fight. So I'm spreading out for this gaze because I'm treated like melee. I can get targeted by that first rage, so I got to be out of the group. The benefit of this though is that you can't be targeted by Argus's cone. It just straight can't target you, so you can be really lackadaisical about your positioning here. There's not a ton to say in this first phase, and honestly in Phase 2 either. Both of these phases are sort of irrelevant. They don't really... They could honestly be solo or duo healed by most competent groups. The only thing that's going to kill people in these phases is not spreading out for gaze properly and getting hit by a cone or a blight or something. Like the checks are very binary in that if you get hit by it, you're going to die. If you don't get hit by it, you're not going to die. So, you know, there's just not a lot of healing. Like, our healers are cycling cooldowns just to fucking pad at this point, you know. It's not like they're needed or anything. So here I'm trolling a little bit. I didn't see meta under me, and I got myself a couple of stacks, and I gave him... actually, I didn't give him any stacks. How did I get a stack and he didn't get any? That's ridiculous. Alright. So Rages come out. Tortured Rage comes out in such a way that you can have Essence Fawn up for every single one of them, so that's basically where you're going to want to be using it. Not that it matters. There's almost nothing to talk about in terms of actual healing here. You could effuse spam and the rate would be fine. Even the damage that I'm dealing right now is sort of irrelevant because the raid's DPS is so far ahead of what it needs to be that we end up stopping, like, I don't know, for 40 or so seconds during the phase. So here I'm just spreading out for Rage. Got me there. There's one thing to note that depending on your timing, the timing of that push rather, the soul bombs and the rages can sort of screw with you. So if you are targeted with rage, if you have rage on you, you are excluded from the soul bomb targeting. However, if you have soul bomb on you, you are not excluded from rage targeting. So if you push in such a way that the soul bombs go out before gaze does, then it's possible for you to get soul bomb and then also get rage, and that means you can't stack with the tank because you'll just kill him. So you just have to get out of the group and die. Or if you're really on the ball and your healers are paying attention, it's possible to survive it. It requires you popping all of your cooldowns, so I mean Diffuse Magic, Fort Brew, using Soothing Mist for Shroud, and hitting yourself with a Life Cocoon. But if you have all that, it's possible to live it. Your healers are just going to have to heal you through about 20 million damage before that, so it's a... I think I ran the numbers on it, and with my effective health, it's... If my healers can do about 700k sustained HPS to me, I can survive it. Because the hit itself is 35 million damage, and the dot prior to it is 35 million damage. So as long as you, before the hit, get your effective health to set to above 35 million, then you're good. So yeah, not a lot to talk about here. Here you can see our raid has stopped DPSing. We're just waiting. We're just sitting here waiting for a good push timer. Just, you know, I'm just padding, really. Alright, now we're gonna all group up and die. The reason we're doing this is because we want to die sooner to reset the cooldown on our pots. This phase here specifically, this like intermission lasts basically a minute. I think almost exactly a minute if I'm not mistaken. It might be exactly a minute, I don't know. It's on the side there. It looks like about a minute. So that just means that if you wanted to, prior to this phase, with the extra bit of like fanfare before you actually kick Argus, you can pop Felons and Manatee if you want to pad a little bit harder, and it'll be up basically no matter what for when you need it going into this phase. You could do this the same thing with Revival, really. I think you could Revival very late into that phase, and by the time you, like, any meaningful damage happens in the third phase, it'll be up. So the fight actually starts here. I know we're like, what, almost 6 minutes into the video, but this is where the fight starts. So get ready for that sort of prog. Just getting in some damage here. If I wasn't trolling, I would have potted there just to push more damage. I oftentimes forget to pot in this phase, just because I'm very bad at the game. So I'm just stacking with the range because I think it's just easier here. Right after you got to get rid of, right after you dodge these scythes, rather, you got to immediately get out because gaze happens, and it's pretty likely you'll get targeted if you don't have a lot of melee in your group. So I like to just be like far out, like way away from the group, because something about my tiny monkey brain makes it very difficult for me to anticipate the positioning of other players, even though I know exactly where they're going. So I just like to stay way out in the middle here. If you have Refreshing Jadewind, it's possible for you to just walk up and stand right next to them. There's definitely room there. So for this, the double break, I pop my Manatee and Velens just to supplement Maeve's cooldowns. Maeve pops basically everything, and it's enough to keep the raid alive. Also, Chi-Ji there. Just, you know, just like some added stuff to make sure that people don't get ticked down in between Maeve's casts. So one thing you gotta notice while you're standing out here is you gotta be acutely aware of the rents. So you'll notice I dodged the side there to make it so that my tank had an easier time, rather, of collecting those orbs. So here I'm just, you know, getting ready to dodge these. You can see that the more experienced members of my group have bigger brains and they can dodge out in the middle. I have a small Mistweaver brain, so I gotta get to an edge. It's currently being called that Bran, one of our paladins, needs to break, but he DC'd here, so we're actually going into another double stack, which we weren't prepared for. But through, I think, Trank and Sack, we're able to heal through it. Usually the strat here is to break one and then break another and do like a revival on the first one or something, and then a trank on the other, or a AM on one, trank on another, so, you know, just separate the cooldowns there just to make it a little safer, but it's fine. And then here we're just basically waiting to survive here until we can suicide next to the tree. So here I didn't get in range of our tank fast enough, but it's a good idea to life cocoon him before you die. Just because he has to live for like 5 or 6 seconds, maybe not 6 seconds, but like it feels like a scary amount of time on his own, and life cocoon just helps that out. So here I'm just trying to get a little bit of extra damage in and try to be that 1% that gets us the kill. Unfortunately for what I just said, I spread out just like 18 seconds too early. I don't need to be out here even close to this early. I'm also trolling a little bit in that I popped Manatee and Velens there for basically no reason. Like, there's higher damage phases that are coming in like 30 seconds that I could have used it on, so not sure what my choice was there. I think I got frightened and forgot the timings. Here Witz has 2 stacks on him and chains, so a good player would be focusing him. I'm not doing that. It's because I'm about to get the juiciest life cocoon of all time. You'll notice our raid is healing these chains instead of breaking them. That's because cooldowns aren't up at this point, and we don't want to go into an unfavorable rage. So here it's just pop everything, burn, heal as hard as you can, and then once we're out of this, the fight's basically a kill. Yeah, just basically use all your mana. I just spam here, spread out. Chi Torpedo is super valuable here because it lets you just get way out. You'll notice one of our players just opted to, with Rage, just opted to suicide in the middle there rather than give people stacks. That was an incredible play on his part. And then here I'm just cycling healing on Polly. The only thing that can wipe us at this point is if one of those chains dies. So in that last phase, once the previous chains have broken, make sure that you just spam the next chains, because Argus can kill literally everyone else, and as long as those chains stay alive, the boss will die. So yeah, that was how to heal Argus on a Mistweaver. Thanks for watching. If you got any questions, leave them below. I'll try to answer them. Yeah, take care. See ya.